All right, guys. So now that we have our bed cleared and ready, as promised, we're going to go ahead and get some of the seeds started. Some of the ones that we're going to be using, we're going to direct sow into the ground. They're the types that prefer to get started in a seed tray and then transplanted. Some of those include beets. This is another variety of beets that I'm going to be using. My red onions, as well as my Walla Walla onion, which is just a yellow onion, and also my winter squash. Those are the ones that I'm going to be starting in a seed tray, and then I'm going to be transplanting. Let's get started. The one thing that I want to do is get my seed starter mix put together. If you guys remember, the first thing that I said I'm going to have in my mixture is some Coco Coir. Now, the Coco Coir, it serves a good purpose, which is keeping the soil well drained. We don't want to get the soil to the point where it's compact, their roots can't actually form or develop. So you want to make sure that you use some Coco Coir in your mixture. Now, the other thing that I'm going to be adding to this mixture is peat moss. This peat moss is going to serve a couple purposes. Not only is it going to maintain and retain water, it's also going to be the small plants as they're developing their roots and as they're growing before we get them transplanted into the soil. The third thing that I want to talk about is the vermiculite that's being added to the mixture. The vermiculite itself is for a main purpose of drainage. We want to make sure that the seeds are not sitting in a pool of water at any point to where they're going to rot. Another thing that I'm going to be adding to the mix is this vegetable garden fertilizer. Now, the only reason I'm adding this is for just an extra little bit of nutrition for the seedlings as they grow. So all these things mixed together is what I'm going to be using to do my seed starting mix. There is no actual numbers in terms of how much of which. I'm gonna be honest, I just eye it. Gonna go ahead and mix this up, and then I'm gonna show you guys what it looks like once it's mixed. It's almost mixed pretty well. Let me show you guys what this mixture looks like so far. Here's the mixture. As you can see, all the different things that are in there. The way I did it earlier this year is I moistened this up slightly, just enough to form, the cakes in these trays, but not to the point where it's completely damp. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and get a bucket, fill it up with some water, and then start mixing this up. So start with a small amount of water, mix it in together, add more water, and then once you get to the point where you can kind of like put it together and form a cake in your hand, you know you got the right consistency.
Hey, if you've been enjoying the videos or picking up tips on growing your own food or living sustainably, consider buying me a cup of coffee. It's a simple way of showing your support to the channel, and it also helps keep the content growing, literally. Just hit the link in the description. Thanks a bunch.
All right, so now that we got our water and this little bucket here, we're gonna start by adding some water to it. Not too much, just some. Then I'm just gonna mix it, get everything incorporated together. Even if it's going to take this entire thing and some more, I'm still not just gonna drop the whole thing in there. Yeah, it's about right. There we go. That's the consistency I'm looking for right there. All right, guys, so I had to go get myself a pair of gloves before I start digging into this dirt. Let's start with the first tray. All right, let's keep on going. Get these things filled up. Kind of spread that evenly. Okay, so this seed tray is good to go. So here we go, right here. First seed tray is done, just like that. Let's go ahead and even this out some more. All right, our tray is ready. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I have a tendency, I'll put something in a tray, forgot what it was. So what I do is I take notes, go old school with it, take some handwritten notes of what we have, what we planted, or what we got in these trays. Now, old school style says, I just take a little note on my tray. I just draw out my little tray here, draw out a second little tray. Nothing crazy, just as crude as you can get it. Not joking, look at this. So this is what I drew out. In order for me to know which is which, I go tray 1 and then tray 2. I'm also going to put a little X next to tray 1, so I know it coincides with this. Nothing crazy. What we do out here is we grow food the simplest way, all right? So this is the simplest way I can keep track of all these seeds, all right? Now that I have this drawn out, as I'm adding seeds in here, I'll just write whatever it is that I'm putting on, and I try to keep them in a straight line. Nothing hard, just something simple, all right? So let's start with the red onions, right? A lot of times, people will just start putting things in the ground. However, I don't do that. See the back of these? How there's actual instructions on how deep to plant these. You want to make sure you're not planting these so deep that they don't actually get out of the ground. You want to make sure, according to here, it says to only put them 1/2 inch into the dirt. So that much. So don't just stick them straight into there. 1/2 inch, all right? Let's get started. Okay, so we got our first line right there. I'm gonna do another straight line down the middle. These seeds are extremely small, so you have to kind of be mindful of how you're using them. So I first start with getting them all in my hand. So if you've never seen onion seeds, this is what they look like. All right, very small. And then what I'm gonna do is I try to get like a few of them, maybe 4, into these little slits. Try not to crowd them, so that way I don't have to thin them out. Instead of having to thin them out, it's better to not put a bunch of them all up together. So that way you have some spacing between them. I'm gonna put some of these back in. And since this is onions and I don't wanna confuse myself with a bunch of different things, and I wanted to grow a different type of onion, which is, they call this the Walla Walla. It says to put these only 1/4 inch. So these go a little bit shallower than the red burgundy onions. So we're just going to do the same method, just a little trench in the middle. And instead of moving the dirt back on top, I just do a little bit of vermiculite right on top of it, and then I water it in to kind of cover those seeds up with. And the good thing about covering them with the vermiculite is, first, it gives them a mean of holding moisture, and they're undisturbed, so that way they can actually get their roots started very easily. All right, okay, so now that we got the vermiculite on there, this tray is pretty much ready. The onions are in here, and I'm just gonna mark it on my paperwork what type of onions are in this tray number 1. Tray number 2, we're going to go ahead and have our cabbage and beets. Now, we're not going to be doing the entire thing. We're not going to be doing a bunch of beets, by the way. We're going to do 1 line of beets, 1 line of cabbage, and then 1 line of basil. Should be a pretty good one, huh? So some of these are a little different. Like when it comes to the beets, you want to put them 1 inch deep. So I'm going to make this trench just a little deeper than last time. Get these nice and deep, because I already know that these are going to be the ones that have to go a little bit deeper than onions. All right, what we say we're going to put on this? First, we're going to start with some beets, and we're going about 1 inch deep with the beets. All right, not everything has to be put in the same depth, and not everything goes as deep as 1 inch. For example, you notice that this, we're putting a whole inch in. This is what they look like. I'm going to put about 3 of them, 3 to 4, and then I'm going to thin them out as they grow. All right, so we got our line of beets. I guess they're a little different than these ones right here. These are Detroit dark red, and I think I've tried to grow these before because the package is open, but maybe I wasn't successful because I don't remember harvesting beets. So I'm going to do a line or 1 row of the Detroit dark red. The only reason I'm doing so much of the beets is because, honestly, when you're harvesting beets, if you're only pulling 2 or 3 out of the ground, it doesn't really do much. There we go. There we are. So I'm going to save the rest of these just in case. And the second time I'm actually going to do a seed tray, I'm going to make sure that I do another set of beets, just because I want to make sure I'm successful with them this time of year. What should I put in that 3rd row? Let's do the winter squash. And when you're putting things like watermelon, squash, these type of seeds that look similar to this, I don't know if you guys can see them. See how they have points? When you're using seeds that look like this, you want to make sure that you're putting them pointed downward. See? You want to make sure you put them down in this direction. The reason for that is the roots are going to be pushing from the bottom, and it's going to push upward. So if you have it upside down, it has to do all this curling around, and you don't want to have to do all that, all right? Make sure when you're putting these down, you do them individually and you point them downward. So I'm doing 2 per box, so that way if one doesn't make it, at least somebody's going to be using that little growing box here. So 2 per opening. So we're going to do vermiculite in here. Going to save the rest of this. So if we don't have much success with these, we're going to put them down again. So these 2 trays are pretty much good to go. All right. So now that we got the trays together, let's not do what we normally do, which is forget what we have. So let's go ahead and recall what we put. See? So this is how I keep track, because if I don't do this, I'm gonna forget what I put in these things. So this is a good way for you to keep track of what you have growing. That way you can pay attention to how fast they're growing, and you can also check the germination time, and you wanna make sure that you're timing everything correctly, because when it comes to this stuff, I'm telling you guys, timing does play a factor to go from seed to actual plant and harvest. So everything has its time frame. What's going to take the longest so far is the 75 days for the squash. Now that these seed trays are ready to go, the good thing about starting seed trays right now is you can actually leave them outside. It's warm enough in the evening to where you don't have to put grow lights on them or anything like that. And then what I do is I keep them in semi-light. So underneath a tree where there's some type of shade, to give them time to kind of get acclimated, and I kind of put them in the sun just a little bit. And once they get strong enough, I then have them in somewhat of full sun, but not necessarily. Now that we have these 2 trays ready, we're going to do the other ones. Might not go on film for that, but I have to go get the other ones ready. I have to get the trays all put together and everything else. But I'll tell you guys one thing. Try this method. Try doing it the way I'm doing it here, because I've had a lot of success with the way that I'm doing it. Try it out. Let me know what your experience is, because the one thing that we're trying to do here is we're trying to make sure that we grow the simplest way. And we don't want to try to complicate everything, because the world is complicated enough. Growing doesn't have to be. All right. So let's go ahead and leave me a comment below. Let me know what your experience is so far with the mixture that I've come up with. Let me know how well your plants are doing. Let me know how well your seeds are growing. And also, if you haven't done this before, hit that subscribe button, because I want you to be a part of this family, because I don't want you to just watch us grow. I want you to come and grow with us, all right? And I'll give you guys updates on how these seed trays are going, give you some updates on how the garden is going, because we're going to be putting some stuff down over there as well. Thank you for joining me. I will see you on the next one.